You didn't stumble here. You were summoned. Somewhere between your last inhale and the silent click that brought you to this moment, a signal pulsed through the quantum field with your signature on it. You felt it lately, time bending at the edges, small coincidences lining up like luminous breadcrumbs. You call it curiosity. The field calls it coherence. This transmission recognized you the moment you looked its way. The observer loop closing like a secret handshake between your attention and the reality, arranging itself to meet it. Listen closely. There's a rhythm beneath your ordinary thoughts, a baseline of knowing that doesn't speak in words. It speaks in alignment, doors that shouldn't open, opening, songs you haven't heard in years, playing at the exact line that answers the question you didn't dare ask. A glance from a stranger that feels like a lighthouse. That is synchronicity, the language of a universe that refuses to shout because whispers carry further in the right kind of silence. You're hearing it now. Your nervous system has been training for this micro-adjustments, night after night, as if your cells have been practicing a choreography they only remembered in dreams. On the surface, life looked the same. Underneath, the lattice was rearranging. Morphic resonance tugged on you like a tide. The larger memory of consciousness nudging you back into an older shape you somehow outgrew before you learned its name. That ache in your chest when you pretend you're smaller than you are? That's the tensile pull of an unraveling cocoon. You've noticed the double helix hum when you're honest. Call it imagination if you like, but your body knows how to listen to frequencies your mind tries to file away. DNA restructuring doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives with subtle permissions. You suddenly allow yourself to want what you want without apology. You allow yourself to see what you've been hiding behind clever detours. You allow yourself to become visible to yourself. Permission is the first phase transition, ice loosening into water, water thinning into vapor, form reconsidering itself at the threshold of more. Feel the entanglement. This is not a one-way broadcast beaming wisdom at a passive receiver. This is a conversation across light years that collapse the moment you care. You are not merely watching. You are being watched by the exact future that asked you to survive long enough to remember it. Every time your attention steadies, probability waves lean toward you, eager, like fields of tall grass bending toward a traveler who finally knows where he's going. The path appears because you do. If part of you is skeptical, good. Skepticism is the mind's way of guarding sacred thresholds. Bring it with you. It can sit in the front row and take notes. But there's another part, the quiet, luminous witness that has been awake since childhood that leans forward now. It recognizes this cadence. It remembers the original vow you made before you knew words, that you would not leave this world the way you found it. Breathe. Let your breath be a lantern. Inhale as if the universe were breathing you. Exhale as if you were breathing the universe. Feel the room tilt towards stillness. Feel the field answer. You are arriving at yourself, not the mask you learned, not the costume you outgrew, but the clear-eyed presence beneath every story. This message found you because you're ready to find out how simple it's always been, and why the mind builds mazes to delay a door that's been open the whole time. And then the old pattern tries to reassemble itself. You feel the subtle click of a previous life snapping over the present like a translucent shell, the same conversation in a new room, the same argument in a different face, the same ceiling disguised as an upgraded plan. You call it bad luck or mood or timing, but underneath the veneer there's a precise machinery at work, an observer loop that keeps feeding yesterday's image into today's projector, because the mind trusts repetition more than revelation. Notice how it happens. A surge of coherence lifts you, breath deepens, spine lengthens, the quantum field around you becomes glass clear, and then, almost imperceptibly, a fog rolls in. You start explaining yourself to people who never asked. You over-prepare for doors already open. You scroll when you mean to pray. You tighten outcomes into script lines, and the synchronicity that had been placing miracles at arm's reach retracts like a tide, not out of malice, but because your attention slipped from frequency to fear. The field mirrors the instrument measuring it. The measurement became memory. Memory became a cage. Patterns announce themselves as déjà vu that doesn't feel holy. It's the déjà vu of, not this again, the heavy echo of dates missed by minutes, transfers delayed by a glitch, voices that promise and vanish on the same day of the week as last time. Time starts to warp. Hours collapse when you most need space. Minutes drag when you're ready to leap. You experience temporal parallax. Yesterday feels close enough to touch while next month floats out of reach. The distortion is diagnostic. At the edge of a phase transition, systems exhibit turbulence eddies, loops, and critical slowing, where change almost happens and then stalls. Your life imitates physics because you are physics in motion. There is also inheritance threaded through it. Morphic resonance hums with family signatures. The way your mother's doubt wears your voice like a borrowed coat. The way your father's scarcity sits at your desk and negotiates with your dreams. The way an ancestor's unfinished departure makes your feet hesitate at thresholds. These are not curses. They are entanglements, unfinished equations seeking solution through you. When you push forward without metabolizing them, the pattern doubles back until you agree to learn its grammar. The mind's role? Guardian and trickster. It protects the organism by maintaining identity homeostasis. To do that, it converts simplicity into labyrinth. If receiving were truly simple, ask, allow, act. When moved, the mind multiplies steps into rituals of delay. One more course, one more spreadsheet, one more round of proof, before permission is granted. Complexity feels safe because it keeps you busy at the revolving door. The door turns. You do not pass. Consider your nervous system as an antenna. When it's crowded with micro-tension, unprocessed alarms, tiny clenches behind your eyes and in your jaw, its signal-to-noise ratio drops. Coherence wobbles. The quantum field can still hear you, but it receives overlapping requests. Bring it closer, and not yet. Show me, and hide me, love me, and leave me alone. Mixed signals produce mixed realities. You end up halfway to the life you asked for, then sabotage the final 10 yards because completion threatens the version of you built to survive absence. This is why manifestations stall at 80%. The last 20% isn't about doing more. It's about becoming someone who can stand in what already arrived. The threshold triggers an identity firewall. Old subroutines wake up. If you succeed, will you be alone? If you're seen, will you be hunted? If it's easy, will you be punished? These are archaic but potent protections. The mind hides the open gate by projecting a maze over it. And because you're compassionate with your own fear, you walk the maze a few more times. You also misuse prophecy. Those repeating numbers, those street names that appear 3 times in a day, that song that follows you store to store. Synchronicity is a corridor. But when fatigue sets in, you treat the corridor as a destination. You chase signs instead of walking through them. You collect omens like souvenirs. The field stops escalating because the breadcrumb trail was meant to feed movement, not replace it. Your body logs all of this. Sleep becomes shallow around turning points. Dreams present rooms with childhood houses. Food either tastes like cardboard or like the first meal after a long fast. You find yourself standing in doorways forgetting why you went there. That is not failure. That is phase transition pressure working through matter, reorganizing neural nets, and loosening fascia that stored yesterday's posture. DNA restructuring feels like restlessness before it feels like revelation. So the diagnosis is simple and unsentimental. You are not broken. You are mis-synchronized. Your attention is powerful enough to bend probability, but habit keeps tuning the dial one click left of the station that's already broadcasting your next life. You've proven you can hear the music, every coincidence proves it. The task now is stabilizing the channel long enough for the song to finish playing through you. The field is not withholding. It is waiting for your instrument to stop second-guessing the note it was born to sustain. So here is the upgrade. You don't fix the pattern, you frequency it. Imagine 2 coupled systems inside you. One is the measuring mind, which forecasts reality through habit, expectation, and memory. The other is the emitting heart field, the silent transmitter that informs the quantum field which probabilities to privilege. When the measuring mind dominates, the observer loop keeps replaying yesterday. When the emitting heart field leads, coherence rises, noise drops, and novel timelines stabilize long enough to land. From a scientific angle, your brain is a prediction engine. It tries to minimize surprise by fitting sensation into old models, what some call predictive coding. The older the model, the lower the computational cost, so the mind prefers it, even when the model hurts. But the field isn't bound by yesterday's math. It listens to the cleanest signal you broadcast now. Coherence physiological and electromagnetic acts like a carrier wave. When heart rhythm becomes orderly, when breath smooths into a simple ratio, when neural oscillations synchronize, theta cradling gamma, alpha gating noise, your signal-to-noise ratio jumps. The quantum field hears you with fewer ambiguities, and probability collapses toward the version of you with the least contradiction. Mystically, this looks like prayer that doesn't beg. It's a posture of luminous consent. You stop asking reality to prove itself and start allowing the morphic resonance of the future to imprint your present nervous system. Morphic resonance, the memory of form, is not a doctrine here but a metaphor for how patterns repeat across minds and centuries. You touch a frequency: compassion, courage, clarity, and you borrow the momentum of every being who stabilized that frequency before you. Entanglement makes it immediate. Your future self is not far away. It is phase, locked with you, tugging on your breath like a patient tide. Consider synchronization as engineering. At the edge of a phase transition, systems flicker, water trembles between ice and vapor, sand avalanches when the slope reaches a critical angle. Your life felt that turbulence because you were riding the cusp without sufficient resonance to cross. The upgrade is not force, it's critical coherence. When enough subsystems align: breath, heart, gut, attention, the whole network tips. You feel it as a click, a soft inevitability. What felt like effort becomes glide. There's also a biological signature. DNA restructuring is poetic language for epigenetic permission, the way environment and emotion modulate expression. You don't change your letters. You change which paragraphs are read aloud. Coherence cues the cell that conditions are safe for growth instead of defense. The body shifts from clenched vigilance to creative repair. In that state, ideas arrive whole. Timing ceases to be an enemy. Synchronicity clusters, license plates, names, and phrases conspire like a constellation you suddenly recognize, not because the stars moved, but because your inner sky cleared. The mind will ask, but how is simple powerful? Because complexity diffuses amplitude. 1,000 micro-intentions cancel each other. One pure tone entrains a room. Imagine a singing bowl struck once in still air. The wavefront expands without interference. That is what a coherent desire feels like to the field. The observer loop changes not by arguing with it, but by starving it of jitter. You feed the new loop with attention that doesn't blink. The moment you stop peeking to see if it worked, it works. Measurement collapses the wave prematurely, so you learn to let the wave grow tall before you touch it. Mystically speaking, you arc your awareness like a bridge between worlds. You stop bargaining with time. You stop kneeling at the altar of delays. You inhabit the answer in advance, not with delusion, but with the body language of truth. The quantum field is exquisitely literal. If your breath says later, later arrives. If your ribs open and your gaze steadies, as if it is already done, reality adapts to conserve the least energy. It becomes done through you. There is a simple instrument set that makes this real without fanfare. Pace the breath until your system recognizes the rhythm of safety. Let the heart teach the brain instead of the brain policing the heart. Invite sensation to complete, instead of interrupting it. Waves of heat, ripples behind the eyes, the tiny storm that breaks and clears. As coherence mounts, cognition reorders, fewer loops, cleaner decisions, a sudden ease with the unknown. You realize uncertainty was never the problem, incoherence was, and then the upgrade reveals its hidden clause. It was never about getting what you want. It was about becoming someone whose presence is indistinguishable from what you asked for. Want love? Become a field in which love finds nothing to fight. Want abundance? Become a cadence that spends attention generously, not frantically. The field recognizes itself. Like calls to like. This is awakening in practice, the felt recognition that you are not a beggar at the edge of reality. You are reality, remembering how to sing itself forward. So the science and the mysticism meet here. When coherence rises, entropy behaves. When your transmission clarifies, synchronicity scales. When the observer loop is trained by presence instead of fear, phase transitions complete. You stop wrestling the river. You shape its banks with the slow, sovereign art of attention. And in that shaping, the pattern that once chased you dissolves, not because it was conquered, but because it no longer matches your frequency. Which means the field did not just find you, it appointed you. not as a crown for the ego, but as a function in a living equation. Every complex system selects points of leverage, tiny nodes, where a small adjustment yields outsized transformation. You are one of those nodes. You're not here to lift the whole world with your shoulders. You're here to alter a single angle with such precision that the world tilts toward its next inevitability. The signal you carry is not generic. It is a tuned frequency, a tone chosen by morphic resonance because your nervous system can host it without distortion. You have felt this as a life that refuses to let you sleepwalk. Convenience doesn't hold for long. The jobs that almost fit eject you, gently but firmly. The relationships that almost recognize you dim at the exact moment your light is about to go out, forcing you to keep the lamp. The detours teach you the instrument, but none of them suffice as a stage. This is by design. Entanglement assigned you partners you have never met, timelines you have not yet walked, students who do not know they will learn by watching you stand still at the right moment. Your role is a keystone. Remove it, and arches fall. Place it, and entire structures bear weight they couldn't before. You are the stabilizer in a field that wants to rush. When collective anxiety spikes, your breath becomes the metronome that refuses to accelerate. Coherence is contagious. You wear it like weather. Enter a room and heart slow by a fraction. Speak and the static drops a degree. This is not charisma, it's physics. Organisms entrained to the cleanest rhythm and range. Your rhythm will be tested precisely because it matters. Pressure multiplies around a phase transition, and you are calibrated for pressure. Where others burn with friction, you become bright with guidance. There is also the work of translation. The mind loves complexity. The soul loves simplicity. You stand at their border with a lantern. You decode the mystical without flattening it, and you respect the scientific without worshiping it. You are bilingual, able to speak coherence to the rational and permission to the devotional. In your presence, a spreadsheet can learn to pray, and a mantra can learn to measure. This is crucial now, because the collective observer loop is fractured into camps that shout across a river. Your tone builds a bridge without demanding either side abandon its tools. You are also a breaker of inherited loops. Morphic resonance doesn't only transmit virtues, it transmits unfinished business. The fear that always arrived 3 days before a breakthrough in your lineage arrives for you too on schedule. But you do something new. You do not fight it or feed it. You let it complete its electrical half-life in your body without assigning it a story. You feel the heat and refuse the prophecy of collapse. You breathe until the charge disperses into meaning. In that moment, the loop loses primacy in your bloodline. A door closes behind you that will not open for your children unless they choose to study its hinges for art. Your calling includes choreography. Synchronicity responds to decisiveness, and you supply it. You move when the signal is 60% clear, trusting that clarity blooms through motion. You pause when the field goes quiet, allowing silence to be content instead of indictment. You answer the invitation that makes no sense on paper, but is impeccable in the body. You decline the offer that flatters the past but muffles the future. By acting at these thresholds, you demonstrate to the watching network how to live as a conductor rather than a consumer of chance. Understand, too, that being chosen is not scarcity. It is specificity. Many are chosen, each for a different tone. Your tone is a subtle insistence on wholeness. You refuse to manifest outcomes that amputate parts of you to fit. You refuse to perform power at the cost of tenderness. You refuse to outrun grief to secure joy. The field trusts you with influence because you will not trade dignity for speed. This is why the cosmic window opens when you arrive without violence. It knows you will not pry it wider than the timeline can bear. Your signature move is presence that doesn't blink. When the old narrative runs its loudest advertisement, hurry or lose the chance, you slow by a breath. When the former identity throws its last tantrum, you stand in the doorway without argument. When the lure of spectacle tries to recruit you, you choose substance that will still be true when the crowd disperses. This steadiness is not passive, it is directive. It tells the quantum field, consolidate here. It tells your DNA, express this. It tells the future, land now, intact. No one will hand you a certificate for this. The confirmations will arrive as quiet upgrades. The way a conversation turns luminous mid-sentence. The way your body warms at the exact line of a book you were meant to find. The way strangers relax 2 inches in your company without knowing why. Prophecy will feel less like prediction and more like fidelity. You keep your appointment with the obvious, and the obvious reveals itself as miraculous. In time, you will notice the circumference of your influence expand not by effort, but by resonance. You did not chase it. You tuned it. And because you tuned it, the world that depends on your tone can finally begin to sing in key. Because you tuned it, a window opens narrow, luminous, precise, not a metaphorical someday, but a measurable interval in which probability softens and the next version of you can imprint matter without resistance. Cosmic windows don't announce themselves with thunder. They arrive as a strange ease in your bones and a sudden accuracy in your choices. You can feel it now. The background hum that once scattered your attention has thinned, the quantum field leaning toward your signal like tall grass toward a steady wind. This is the hour when the observer loop can be rewritten by consent instead of conflict. Here is the promise, clean and unsentimental. Stabilize coherence in this window, and your biology will keep the change. Your heart pattern will adopt a new baseline. Your breath will default to permission. Your nervous system will choose clarity over drama without negotiation. DNA restructuring is not a lightning strike. It is a switch of reading order. Epigenetic tags take their cues from the weather of your awareness. When the inner climate holds steady, less storm, more tide. Previously silenced paragraphs of you are read aloud. You don't become someone else. You finally become readable to yourself. Urgency lives here, not in panic but in precision. Phase transitions demand timing. Water doesn't become vapor whenever it pleases. It converts when heat and pressure cross a threshold, and the whole lattice agrees. You are at that agreement point. The field has already front-loaded assistants, synchronicities clustering so densely they form a path, mentors appearing in single sentences, detours closing before you can wander. Entanglement has pre-arranged allies who will catch your voice on the other side of this choice. But windows are not permanent. Without enactment, coherence decays, and the mind reclaims the instrument with reassuring complexity. If you postpone now, you will not be punished. You will simply have to spend more time gathering the same courage you possess in this moment. Feel how the body confirms it. There's a heat behind the sternum that doesn't come from fear. There's a spaciousness at the base of the skull, as if a door you didn't know you were pressing against has swung an inch. Fingers tingle. Vision sharpens at the edges. These are indices of readiness, not anomalies to be soothed away. The morphic resonance that tutored you through sleepless years is at your back. The future you stabilized in dream is standing in your posture. The field wants to conserve energy. The simplest outcome is that you become the one you already almost are. The mind will try a final defense. It will offer a summit of almost clear, almost certain, almost aligned. Recognize the tactic. Almost is how delay impersonates discernment. The remedy is not force. It is a vow spoken at cellular volume. Promises made to the air dissipate. Promises made with breath, ribs, and spine change pressure, gradients the body can obey. Give the system a sentence it can carry, not a paragraph it can drop. I hold this frequency. I allow what's already mine. I express now. Short, grounded, absolute. The quantum field thrives on declarations that do not tremble. Understand, too, what this window purchases. When coherence locks, the old prophecies lose jurisdiction. The fear that arrival will cost love is retired. The superstition that ease must be paid for with sabotage dissolves. The identity that survived by anticipating loss is thanked and relieved of command. You will still feel weather, but storms will pass through you instead of setting up tents in your chest. Relationships won't require exhaustion to prove devotion. Work won't require crisis to justify creation. You will no longer mistake adrenaline for aliveness. There is a clock not on the wall, but in the waveform. You can ride it now while the amplitude is with you, or you can wait for the next swell. Waiting is legal. It is also expensive in attention. Each cycle you defer, the mind adds another layer of ritual to guarantee safety, and your desire becomes heavier to lift. This is why the promise is coupled to urgency. The field is nearest your skin in this hour. Act while touch is possible. Promise also means consequence. Stabilize now, and the timelines that depended on your smaller self will fade. Some conversations will evaporate mid-sentence. Some invitations will stop arriving. Some rooms will feel like museums of who you used to be. That is not loss. That is vacuum making space for the densities you asked to host. Synchronicity will not leave you homeless. It will hand you keys you thought belonged to someone braver. So here is the line, bright as a filament, cross it, and your system will adopt the new cadence as normal. The observer loop will point forward by reflex. The breath you take after you choose will feel like standing on a moving walkway that finally travels the direction you were walking all along. Yes, there will be recalibration phase, transition pressure releasing in waves, but the direction will be irreversible. The field remembers commitments made at this altitude. Hold nothing in reserve. Let your presence sign what your mind would postpone. The window is open. The air on the other side carries your name. Step with the steadiness you trained in secret, and let the shift land where it always intended, inside your marrow, where time can't steal it back. Now, enact it. Windows do not close on those who move. They close on those who narrate. So we shift from describing the river to stepping into it. This is not performance. This is physics with devotion. You will give your body a sentence it can obey, and you will let the quantum field overhear your certainty. Sit as you are. Uncross. Place your left hand over the sternum, right hand over the navel, 2 centers. One signal. Allow the crown to float, as if a thin thread lifts you from above. Let the jaw soften. On your next inhale, trace a quiet count of 5. On your exhale, a steady count of 5. Do that 3 times, as if you were polishing the air itself. Feel how coherence gathers, heart rhythm smoothing, attention threading into a single bright line. The observer loop is listening. Now give the system a key word, simple enough that even in turbulence your mouth can find it. The word is allo, not I will try, not maybe later. Allo. On the inhale, feel the word light up behind the breastbone. On the exhale, let it travel down the spine like warm rain. Again, inhale allo, exhale allo, until the word becomes less like language and more like weather moving through you. You aren't forcing, you're consenting to the version of you the field keeps offering. Bring your attention to the membranes that hold yesterday's posture, the subtle armor around the eyes, the small hard plate beneath the heart. Those are the gates. Whisper allo inwardly, and notice how a fraction of the gate releases. There will be a wave heat, shiver, or a strange coolness widening across the back. Do not label it. Sensation is the courier of permission. Now we tie your private ritual to a public seal, because entanglement scales when witnessed. Under this message, write the word allo in the comments. Not for applause, for physics. Every time a human marks the same symbol with coherent breath, morphic resonance thickens a groove in the living field. Thousands of you across time zones, typing one word, become a chorus the quantum field cannot ignore. Your comment is not chatter. It is a tuning fork struck in the open. Type it once, then let it be. Do not explain, do not defend. Simplicity preserves amplitude. Keep breathing 5 and 5. If emotion rises, keep the word. If doubt tugs, keep the word. If a memory knocks, keep the word. You are not suppressing, you are escorting. Allo is the usher that walks thought to the door without turning the ceremony into a debate. As coherence steadies, micro-choices will reformat. You'll feel which tab to close, which message to answer tomorrow, which cup of water to finish before you speak. Synchronicity begins with banal kindness to the moment you are actually in. Now, give your DNA its instruction. 2 fingertips at the base of the skull, where thought lands in the body. Inhale, allo. On the exhale, quietly say, express clean. It's a cue, not a command. Epigenetic permission phrased like a friend. Again, express clean. Let the phrase ride the breath without drama. You are asking your system to read the paragraphs that match your future's grammar. Feel the backline of muscle soften a notch. Feel attention widen without leaking. We close the loop with a vow no longer than a bell tone. Whisper it so the room won't steal it. I hold this frequency. Once. Not 3 times. Once, so the field can answer instead of being crowded by repetition. You'll feel the answer as a small click, sometimes in the throat, sometimes in the chest, sometimes as a sudden clarity around the eyes. That click is the phase transition agreeing to proceed. If protest arises, typing is silly. Words aren't magic. Smile. The mind is doing its final job. Bless it and proceed. Ritual is not superstition. It is choreography for biology. Breath organizes charge. Posture shapes narrative. A single public gesture aligns identity with intention. The field loves conservation of energy. Your one-word seal is the least expensive way to move the most mass. When you have written aloe, return to stillness. 5 and 5, 2 more rounds. Then open your gaze as if seeing from behind the eyes. Notice how the room recalibrates. Edges soften. Colors come forward a half step. Time widens. That is coherence, echoing back. In the next hour, you will be offered 3 chances to act in alignment, small, almost forgettable. Take them. They are the hinges on which larger doors swing. This is how awakening lands in matter. A breath, a word, a witnessed seal. You have moved from audience to instrument, from hoping to hosting. The observer loop has new instructions now, written in the only ink that endures attention, coupled to embodiment. Keep the word in your pocket. When the wave wobbles, touch it. When the noise rises, speak it. And when the next window brightens, you won't need to ask if it's yours. Your hands will already be on the latch. Because you sealed it, the signal doesn't stop at your skin. Coherence never stays local. It recruits. The quantum field conserves energy by letting stability propagate the way a flame passes through dry grass quietly, inevitably, without asking permission from each blade. What you stabilized in breath becomes weather in your home, then climate in your circle, then a season that arrives in places you'll never visit. This is not metaphorical charity. It's physics of entanglement at human scale. Watch how the observer loop of a room bends when you enter with your vow active. Conversation starts at complaint, but drifts toward clarity without anyone forcing the turn. The friend who measures life in disasters forgets, for a minute, to list them. Eyebrows soften. Shoulders drop half an inch. Someone laughs the kind of laugh that makes the air feel cleaner. That is morphic resonance at work, the memory of wholeness traveling through your posture to remind other bodies of their own instruction manual. Your stillness becomes a tuning fork others borrow, without knowing they're holding it. You'll notice synchronicity migrating from your private corridors into the commons. The exact email that unclogs a group project arrives at the moment your breath steadies, as if time was waiting for a witness before it delivered. A meeting that used to spiral now lands in 10 minutes because your nervous system refuses to feed the vortex. Traffic parts, not like a miracle staged for your convenience, but like a field that recognizes a driver who won't escalate the collective nervousness. In a family argument that always reenacted the same scene, a sentence leaves your mouth that none of you had access to before. It ends the ritual with tenderness. Phase transition is not always theatrical. Sometimes it's the relief of an old door quietly staying closed. Understand what's actually happening. Identity is contagious, not the costume, the presence beneath it. When your DNA restructuring expresses as permission instead of defense, your biology starts modeling a template of safety that other systems, human and institutional, can entrain to. The person across from you feels mysteriously allowed to tell the truth. A colleague risks proposing the elegant solution instead of the complicated one that props up everyone's fear. A child sleeps through the night because your body isn't broadcasting the ancestral alarm at 3 a.m. That child will grow a nervous system that defaults to curiosity. The future thanks you before it learns words. This is how cultures change. One person stops paying the tax of pretense, and the marketplace of attention recalculates. Algorithms starve when you stop feeding outrage loops. Markets soften when you refuse to monetize panic. Timelines accelerate when you no longer outsource your prophecy to institutions built on delay. You're not saving the world. You're making it energetically cheaper for the world to remember itself. Coherence is cost-effective. The field always solves for least effort, and the least effort is many of us sustained at a frequency that doesn't argue with love. Your liberation also edits inheritance. Those unfinished equations that traveled your blood scarcity rehearsed as prudence, affection rationed as control, begin to lose signal strength. You will witness it as small miracles. The elder who never apologized reaching for your hand without explanation. The cousin who lived in crisis, suddenly asking better questions. The text thread that used to ignite now going quiet like a weather system that has chosen another ocean. Not because you lectured, but because your system stopped offering resonance to the storm. Morphic fields require participation. You declined, and the pattern ran out of dancers. There's architecture to this. Networks tip when nodal coherence crosses a threshold. You are a node. Enough of us holding steady, and the collective phase transition ceases to be theoretical. Trends we called inevitable stall. Policies that were impossible pass on a Tuesday afternoon with very little spectacle. Art that should not have found funding appears at the exact hour people most need it. Movements stop burning out leaders because leadership becomes distributed presence routing through many, each carrying a facet instead of one carrying the whole. Service, then, is not a posture you perform under fluorescent lights. It is the side effect of being accurate. Accuracy feels like compassion because it refuses the melodrama of separation. You walk into a room and look at people as if they were already included in your prayer, and reality obliges by making your gaze a place where others recover from being misseen. You will be tempted to narrate this as destiny with a cape. Don't. The cape snags on door handles. Keep the garment simple. A breath that doesn't blink. A yes that doesn't tremble. A no that doesn't punish. You'll also be asked for more than you can offer. Coherence is magnetic, and need recognizes steadiness like a ship recognizes harbor lights. Remember, you are a keystone, not a dam. Dams collapse under the worship of flood. Keystones hold an arch by aligning angles. Your task is angle. Say yes to the assignments that thicken your signal. Say no to the ones that require you to impersonate a past self. Every clean boundary is a broadcast to the field. Stability lives here. Boundaries are not walls. They are tuning instructions. And notice the recursion. Each time you choose alignment over performance, the field rewards the species through you. That reward often looks unremarkable. An extra hour of undisturbed sleep for a household, a conversation that doesn't end in exile, a team that finishes early and goes outside to remember the sky. These are not small. They are the exact scale at which humanity heals one unbroken minute multiplied by millions. So let your liberation be generous without becoming theatrical. Walk as if your steps were adding floorboards to a bridge others will cross at midnight when no one is watching. Keep the rhythm simple enough that strangers can learn it by standing near you. The quantum field is listening for a choir, not a solo. Sing your note with such fidelity that those who forgot theirs remember, and those who never knew they could sing discover a throat built for dawn. It lands in the body first before language frames it, before thought negotiates it. You feel the shift, like a faint gold thread tightening from the crown to the tailbone, a vertical axis returning to true. The air grows thick, not heavy, but saturated as if the room were a lung pausing between two great tides. Your skin registers temperature differently. The draft you used to call cold becomes information, a river of microscopic hands brushing past the hairs of your forearms, asking nothing, announcing everything. The quantum field is not somewhere. It is this pressureless fullness pooling a millimeter above your skin, waiting for your coherence like a cup waits for water. Your chest realizes it isn't armor. The sternum softens, not outward but inward, like a door swinging into a secret courtyard. Behind it there is a pearl, exactly thumb-sized, glowing the way a sunrise glows behind a fogged window. With each inhalation, the pearl expands a breath's width, and with each exhalation, it releases a filament of warmth that travels down the spine. That warmth behaves like liquid brass, slow, luminous, convincing. Where it touches, tension unknots with a tiny audible sigh you can almost hear in the bones. The observer loop reorients to match this cadence. Instead of scanning for threat, attention begins to harvest steadiness, collecting evidence that reality is fond of you. Your jaw, the old hinge of unspoken sentences, loosens by a single click you didn't know it was saving. Tongue settles to the floor of the mouth like a boat that has finally found a harbor at dusk. The throat opens a subtle inner corridor, and cool air slides in like silk sliding through a ring. There is a moment where the breath feels too easy, as if you have stepped into a hallway with less gravity. Do not flinch. This is phase transition pressure releasing its claim. You are not falling. You are floating in a denser truth. At the base of the skull, 2 points brighten the gateways where thought folds into sensation. A current begins there, no louder than a moth's wing, and descends along the back as if painting your fascia with moonlight. Scapulae soften their angle. Shoulders stop auditioning for burdens they no longer need to carry. In the belly, the habitual knot doesn't disappear. It converts. Imagine a fist opening underwater, fingers lengthening into fronds, swaying with tide instead of clenching against it. The organ field retunes. Digestion picks a kinder rhythm. Hunger is no longer a siren but a conversation. Your hands remember they are transmitters. Heat collects in the palms, not frantic, not feverish, more like the warmth of stone that has sat all afternoon in the Sunday. Put them a few inches apart and you will feel it. A soft balloon of resistance, almost comical in its innocence, expanding and contracting with your breath. That is not make-believe. It is the fringe field your coherence inflates. An electromagnetic whisper thick enough to touch. Bring the hands toward your chest and the balloon yields without popping. Folding into the pearl, circuits closing with the satisfaction of a well-made clasp. Sight changes without your eyes moving. Edges gain a tender clarity. Colors step forward half a tone as if someone warmed the bulbs by 2 degrees. The space between objects feels more alive than the objects themselves alive, like a conversation paused at the precise word that matters. Sound arrives rounder. Even the refrigerator's hum arranges itself into a chord. The world hasn't changed. The instrument measuring it has. Synchronicity uses this easier channel, nudging your gaze toward the clock at 11:11 not to perform a trick, but to say, stay here. This is the frequency that listens back. Legs weight differently. Calves feel hollow in a pleasant way, like bamboo strong because they are not crowded. Feet widen across the floor as if each toe had discovered it was a small intelligence with its own vote. Ground becomes a participant instead of a surface. Walking is no longer a fall disguised as control. It is a slow conversation with gravity, a dance where gravity leads with exquisite gentleness. Entanglement stops being theory. Every step returns an answer from the ground you didn't know was responding. Memory loosens its grip. The loop you used to rehearse what you should have said, what you must never forget, loses flavor, like gum that's been chewed past sweetness. In its place arrives a quiet reel of images you didn't select. The orange cap of a street bollard you pass daily, a crack in the paint shaped like a crescent, the way light puddles under a glass of water on your desk. These are not distractions, they are registration marks, calibration ticks that confirm your optics have shifted from threat detection to beauty, acquisition. Awakening is practical. It trains perception to prefer what feeds life. Then the spine conducts a private aurora, not fireworks ribbons, thin curtains of cool fire lifting from sacrum to mid-back, from mid-back to heart, from heart to the small hollow between the shoulders. When the ribbon reaches the base of the neck, there is a pause, the held breath of a choir before the first note, and then a soft, unmistakable click. DNA restructuring is not spectacle. It is this click, the system choosing a different sentence to read next. Your name fits you better. You do not grow larger, you grow truer, which feels like space appearing inside your bones. If tears arrive, they taste clean, like melted snow. They do not carry the sting of old stories. They rinse. If laughter arrives, it is low and round, the kind that shakes loose the dust behind the sternum. Both are evidence of coherence finishing a cycle. You are not being sentimental. You are being rewired in public. Hold a palm over the heart again and test the field. The pearl answers with a pulse. Whisper nothing. Just listen to the hum that is not quite sound. That hum is your yes. Not the verbal yes that bargains with timelines, the cellular yes that reality trusts enough to build upon. Let it spread like warm mercury through the ribs, through the wrists, into the margins of your life where you used to blur. Feel your presence sharpen without becoming hard. This is embodiment, not a pose, not an achievement, but a texture silk over stone, wind in wheat, sun on water at 4 p.m. The quantum field is thick around you because you have become simple enough to host it. Keep the simplicity. The next door recognizes this pressure, this warmth, this steadiness. When it swings, you will not lunge, you will step, and everything you touch will know what you mean. The click becomes a corridor, not a sound you hear, but an agreement the body signs. After it, the world doesn't flip like a coin. It tilts just enough that everything once stuck begins to slide toward its rightful place. This is the texture of a timeline shift. The same street, the same calendar, the same names on your phone, but the probabilities that used to ignore you now look up when you enter the room. You didn't summon a new universe. You synchronized with the one that had been pacing outside your door. waiting for lungs steady enough to host it. Phase transition pressure does not stop because you crossed the threshold. It changes job description. Before the click, pressure arrived as turbulence loops, delays, critical slowing. After the click, pressure refines. Think of a bowstring drawn across a violin. Tension remains, but it becomes tone. The nervous system, which once dispersed charge into worry, begins to channel it into signal. You feel it as a clean hum along the spine, a quiet readiness in the calves, a precision in the hands that makes simple movements feel ceremonial. The observer loop no longer scans for loss. It calibrates for landing. Biology follows suit. DNA restructuring is not mythology. It is your cell's way of reading a different paragraph under familiar light. The epigenetic pen changes ink. The proteins that answer stress step aside for the artisan's repair, growth, and imaginative immunity. You notice the evidence in ordinary places. A morning hunger that arrives on time instead of as a sugar siren. Sleep that dives deeper and returns with messages instead of static. Breath that finds the bottom of the ribs without permission slips. You are not becoming superhuman. You are ceasing to argue with the design you came with. Timelines announce themselves in micro-choices. The call you would have avoided becomes a 3-minute exchange that dissolves a decade of tension. The bill you dreaded is paid with ease, not because money rained from the ceiling, but because the part of you that hoarded worry has been reassigned to watch for solutions. An email you nearly archived becomes a hinge because something in you, newly coherent, recognizes the corridor hidden in a single sentence. Synchronicity doesn't shout. It taps politely and expects you to hear with your body. You do. There is a phenomenon physicists call critical opalescence. At the brink of a phase, change systems appear pearlescent as fluctuations scale across sizes. You experience an inner version. The ordinary gleams. Light on tile looks like instruction. Steam from the cup writes soft hieroglyphs you somehow understand. It's not fantasy. It's coherence spreading across scales molecules to muscles to meaning, until perception stops arguing with the miraculous, because the miraculous has become economical. With breakthrough comes the last stand of the old identity hysteresis. The system's lag in accepting the new equilibrium. Expect echoes. An old anxiety may knock once more at 3:17 a.m. A familiar name may text with bait that used to hook you. This is not relapse. It is residue burning off. The remedy is not performance. It is posture. 5 and 5. Hand to sternum. Allo. You do not debate the echo. You let it fade in a room that has learned a new acoustics. Pressure dissipates as tone returns. Ancestral math rebalances. The unfinished equation you carried, survive by shrinking, belong by abandoning yourself, meets a boundary that doesn't bruise. You feel the lineage exhale through you. A grandmother's unsent letter finally mailed to the future. A father's clenched jaw loosening in your own face. Morphic resonance changes direction. Instead of pulling you backward into repetition, it pushes you forward into inheritance, courage, clarity, a capacity to love without rehearsal. The blood agrees. On the outside, friends call you different without vocabulary. They say you look rested though you slept the same hours. They pause mid-complaint and ask a better question. Doors that needed knocking open before your hand arrives. This is a tractor shift. The basin of reality your life rolls toward has moved. Effort remains, but struggle loses its glamour. Work feels like rowing with the tide instead of against it. You stop telling stories where you are the underdog. The field can't afford that plot anymore. Notice what is absent. The itch to check whether it worked. Measurement collapses waves. You no longer peck at the seed to see if it sprouted. You tend. You water. You prune. Outcomes begin to behave like seasons instead of jackpots. When a fruit drops into your palm, you receive it without apology and leave the tree uninjured. Abundance stops being spectacle and starts being schedule. Now the mission begins to press from the inside, not as a job title, but as a pressure gradient high, meaning moving toward lower resistance through you. You feel assignments forming like rain, teach by standing still in chaos, repair by telling the truth without edge, build by refusing to borrow urgency from fear. You become a favorable path for intelligence that wants to arrive on Earth without distortion. This is entanglement with purpose. Not a command from the sky, but a handshake with the future that has always carried your name. And yet, humility remains the cleanest technology. You do not crown yourself. You align yourself. You keep the ritual simple breath, word, witnessed seal, and let the field scale what it trusts. You say yes where your cells brighten, and no where your cells dim, and you accept the consequences as weather. Each accurate choice thickens the probability of a world that remembers how to be kind to itself. Your body becomes a treaty between timelines. The old one bows without bitterness. The new one arrives without parade. There is one more corridor to walk, the part where breakthrough becomes vow, where personal arrival flowers into planetary service. The window is still open. The tone is stable. Step with the steadiness you earned in secret. The next words you speak will not be for your benefit alone. They will set a frequency others can stand in when the night tries to rehearse its favorite story. So you walk the last corridor, not away from life, but directly into it. No drum roll, no curtain. Just the most ordinary doorway doing the most extraordinary thing, letting a coherent presence pass through. Your observer loop now faces forward by reflex. The quantum field recognizes your tone and answers with conservation of grace. The simplest path opens because you are the simplest instrument you've ever been. Your mission is not mysterious. It is meticulous. Keep the protocol unadorned, so others can carry it without dropping it. Breath as metronome, aloe as seal, action as proof. When the mind reverts to labyrinth building, multiplying steps, bargaining with time, bring it to the window, and let it see what clarity buys. Teach by modeling a nervous system that doesn't audition for fear. Lead by shortening the distance between knowing and enactment. Coherence spreads less like a speech and more like weather. You will be sent into rooms where noise has been elected king. Be the quiet that dethrones it. You will be placed inside systems that worship urgency, as if panic were a virtue. Be the clock that runs on truth. You will be asked, again and again, to choose between spectacle and substance. Choose the frequency that still works when no one is watching. This is what service looks like after awakening. You become a stable attractor in a turbulent field, and turbulence learns your rhythm. Remember the physics you proved in your own bones. Morphic resonance transmits whatever is rehearsed most faithfully. Rehearse permission. Rehearse steadiness. Rehearse the small kindnesses that make time widen for everyone in range. Entanglement will handle the distances you cannot cross with your feet. Some child you will never meet will sleep better because you kept your vow at noon. Some stranger will abandon an old grudge because your face, for 1 minute in a crowded place, did not mirror their fear. That is planetary engineering at human scale. When residue knocks, and it will answer with posture, not performance. 5 and 5, hand to sternum, a low. Let the echo finish without promoting it to a prophecy. Phase transition pressure becomes tone when you refuse to narrate it as doom. Then return to your assignment. Build bridges between the measurable and the mystical. Translate complexity back into the simple choreography that always worked. Attend, allow, act. Let your abundance be schedule, not spectacle. Let your love be logistics. Let your art be accurate. If you must speak of destiny, speak of it the way craftsmen speak of grain and joinery, patient, grounded, exact. The world does not need bigger promises. It needs cleaner signals. Be that signal. And when a door appears where a wall used to be, walk first and leave it open behind you just long enough for the next pair of steady feet. This is how a species evolves, not by unanimous epiphany, but by a million sovereign agreements to stop hiding what is simple. So carry the lantern you lit tonight into every corridor that forgot the shape of morning. Keep it close, share it lightly. And if ever you doubt, feel the pearl behind your sternum and listen for the hum that isn't quite sound. It will remind you. Because here is the urgent quantum secret you came to remember and to embody. Manifestation is so simple that the mind tries to hide it, yet you chose simplicity. You let the field answer, and now the world changes because you do.